Welcome to another episode of From a People Perspective, a show hosted by Martin Hawk. Today's guest is Mark Goad, General Manager of Allen Canada, a company rethinking how health benefits and insurance are delivered in a system that hasn't changed much in decades. Mark's journey isn't linear. From early days in tech and strategy consulting, to venture capital in Silicon Valley, to now leading one of the most ambitious health insurance challengers in Canada, his path has been shaped by one consistent thread: building and scaling systems that actually improve people's lives. In this episode, we explore how that journey led him into the health space, and why healthcare became a problem worth solving not just from a business lens, but from a deeply personal one. We dive into the growing role of AI in healthcare and insurance, from how people are already using it today, to what happens when AI becomes a trusted part of medical decision-making. And we unpack where the future of Canadian health benefits is heading, from reactive coverage models to a system built around prevention, access, and real usage. This podcast is brought to you by the People Group. We're on a mission to economically empower people leaders. By joining our community, you'll gain access to career opportunities, a network of over 6,000 modern people leaders, and exclusive tools and resources. Learn more at thepeoplegroup.com.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From a People Perspective. I'm your host, Martin Hawk, and today we've got Mark Goad, the GM of Allen Canada. Thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me on, Martin. Looking forward to it.
So yeah, this has been a long time coming. Lots of emails back and forth, and we've yet to shake hands in person. This is the first time we're seeing each other. I love these kinds of episodes because we get to learn so much about each other. And I kind of start things off with some icebreakers. So let's see where things are at. Let's just say you've only got one album that you can listen to, or artist that you can listen to for the rest of the time. What are we dealing with here?
That's tough. That's a tough one. I definitely like to spread it around a little bit, but I think my first thought was kind of going back to the Strokes in high school.
Okay.
This is it. Like that is just like a very specific, everybody loves music from their high school period. It's shocking how that was always when the best music was released. So I think I got to be true to myself and go back to the Strokes.
That's interesting. Yeah, I kind of want to double click on like just general music preferences. Like Strokes is a nice. There's something unique about their sound. I don't know what to say beyond that. Like any other bands that come to mind for you? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I really do like to pass the buck around, like whether it's like country music, rap, EDM. Like if you look at I'm a big live music fan, like probably 5 or 6 concerts this summer. And there's just no thematic
there's
overlaying to anything. No, we got a little Noah Kahan coming up. We got Mumford and Sons. There's a EDM show coming up. So really, really broad interest range there, and that's what I think makes life great.
I've always listened to EDM. I've enjoyed it. I've never gone to a festival or that music and seen that music live per se. Like maybe like Oshiega, and it was someone else, but it's no, that's on the bucket list for sure. Okay, next one. What was like your first gig before you got into the world that you got into? And we'll go into your career history real quick, but
sure. Yeah. First job was 13, learned to skate instructor. I grew up in Scarborough. There's a lot of new Canadians learning how to skate, and that was the first gig. It was like a very interesting lesson of like specialization, because like I remember vividly earning like minimum wage, I think was $7.50 an hour, and I was making $10 an hour. I was like, wow, this is the real deal. So that was my first job.
Cool. Skate instructor. Nice. It's nice when you get your first like chunk of change as a kid, and then you can buy all the things you've been eyeing, or like make up for any birthdays that didn't go as exactly as planned. So from skate instructor to strategy consulting, you were a co-founder at one point. moved into the corporate world of SAP, then got into the VC world. This has been an interesting journey. And now, most recently, you're with Alan leading the charge in Canada, kind of transforming how benefits are being done. I'd love to just kind of get your sense of your journey. And then I definitely want to spend some time on the benefit side of things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, like everything changed at university when I got accepted into the IB business program. That really
Gotcha.
opened my mind to like the types of things you could do, and the classes focused on all day long, 8 hours a day, strategy, finance, operations, and that changed like not only how I saw the world, but also how I saw myself and where I could fit within it. So all I knew graduating from school was that I wanted to work in technology. And I don't think I could have told you like anything more specific than that at that point. And sometimes you got to be lucky, right? SAP at the time was starting up their very first consulting analyst program. So it was like, hey, come work at the time, the world's largest software company and learn from people. So all of my managers were either at Booz Allen, McKinsey, BCG, come learn the strategy consulting tool set within the environment of like learning how to structure and sell large software deals. And a good chunk of those deals, SAP bought Success Factors, and now it's been a couple decades ago, but a good chunk were on HR. So my first projects I remember doing for like Fortune 500 companies were basically helping them assess their workflows. Like, what are they spending time on in work and HR workflows? Where are they spending too much money? Where can they move faster? Benchmarking business processes and headcount and resource planning. So it was a really cool introduction to the world. From there, I kind of parlayed that into venture in San Francisco, had an opportunity to move down to SF, Silicon Valley, and be in the heart of the technology world, which was really a dream come true and a huge accelerant for me. And it was an incredible experience, but I was fortunate to kind of bring that back to Canada as well.
Nice. Any experiences that stick out in the like that's you were at the mecca of technologies for somebody who like I want to work in tech to like going to San Francisco, like a lot of people don't even get there. So that's really cool. Anything stand out about your journey or your lessons there?
Yeah, it's there's a recurrent debate in Canada, like we want to be the next Silicon Valley, we want to be the next thing, and it's like I don't think until you get there you realize what it is and the selection bias that happens of like the people that are there. Every time you go out to a dinner, to an event, to like I played soccer, I ran with a group, like every single person there is building something in technology. They're an engineer, they're a product manager, they're a salesperson, they're recruiting and helping place good like the ecosystem. Every single person you run into is obsessed in the way that a lot of us are in Canada, but it's much more distributed, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have that same, Alex Danko calls it like the scene. Like it doesn't have that scene element and the density that we
Mm,
have that was down in the valley. So I think it's important to note that because then it changes your strategy, how you see yourself, how you position yourself as a tech community changes how you allocate resources, how you define, how do you retract or attain and retain and attract new talent within that ecosystem.
no, it's and were there any companies that stood out like in terms of like your time with them or like while investing and while like what stood out apart from the scene, but
Yeah, yeah, came across like a number of like really interesting companies that are now very big today. And then as part of the scene, there are a lot that like didn't make it. And fast failure, I think, is
yeah.
more of a norm down there than there are companies that aren't going to make it here, and you can last a very long time on kind of government grants and fumes here than otherwise you would. And I think recycling a capital, whether it's human or financial, is an important part of an ecosystem that we don't have
Yeah.
here, really.
Yeah.
So that was a big difference. Yeah, there's a couple companies. I mean, like I remember my first Waymo experience back in 2017. You see a car like without a human being or a human being sitting
2017.
behind the wheel. Yeah, so they were behind the wheel but not touching it, like around
Oh,
their
okay.
campus, because SAP has a campus in the valley, and then I lived up with most of the folks in the city of San Francisco. So I remember seeing that and just being like completely blown away. That was like, yeah, that's something that sticks out to me for sure.
I like that you there was an element of like bringing it back to Canada as well. And in terms of uh bringing what would you say you brought back to Canada when you did come back and where did you end up?
I think but I also learned this at my fund in Toronto of like, what does like exceptional look like? One, like from a pure empirical perspective, you can look at it and be like, yeah, look, like venture funds are built around finding that 0.001% outcome, which in my opinion means 0.01% founder. And it's like, what does that bar mean to you? Until you truly see great and exceptional, I think it's tough to kind of put your finger on it. But I don't think that's unique. Like we have that in Canada for sure. I mean, there's incredible companies being built here. Um, so I'm careful to like completely attribute that to my time in the valley. I think like what I remember is like the shared collective conscious obsession around technology and building and scaling and venture is like it's a cultural language we don't have here. It's not the same density. So that's what I remember about that experience.
Gotcha. But in terms of what you wanted to bring back to Canada, like what when you came back to Canada, it kind of came a sense of like, okay, I've got all this experience. Now I'm back in Toronto, back in Canada, and there's obviously an element of pride with that. What do you see Canada like fostering really well in terms of that ecosystem in general?
I think yeah, I don't know if I have like a super strong opinion on like what Canada does incredibly well because I think I see like entrepreneurship across here and I see great founders in specific domains. Like I don't see it necessarily by stage. Like if it, like I don't know if I have like an overarching unifying theory on like what Canada is uniquely well positioned to do.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's fair. So out of VC, moved into a COO role at Curve Health, and then into Allen. Maybe just kind of like help us get to where you are now.
Yeah, so I left my venture role and was trying to figure out what to do next. And then that was in May of 2020. So the world was about to go into a 2 week lockdown at that point in time. So connected with a bunch of people in the ecosystem and met with the original founder at Curve. And, we felt a really good fit around our vision of using technology to deliver asynchronous care and this idea that we can scale care providers of any kind using AI. And now this is pre ChatGPT kind of 2.0, which
Yeah.
is or 3.0, depending on how early you want to go and saying the change in movement. But like this is before all of that. So I joined a team that had like a really interesting computer vision model, and we built, and they were targeting mostly like high end athletes, and we built and pivoted the whole business around healthcare. The idea was like using technology to scale providers to deliver higher quality care that has higher adherence, better outcomes for less capital. And we raised $5 million around that. We had contracts with a number of the biggest carriers in Canada. We had contracts with a number of the biggest brokers and distributors and TPAs. So I got, without really, intentionally designing it this way, very deep into the Canadian group health landscape, like very deep. And then even all the way to the workers' compensation boards and long-term disability. And, we just weren't able to find the fit. There's a few other telemedicine providers, like, which is a big category I think we fall into, like that we're able to find it. Right.
Yeah.
So Curve is still alive today, operating, selling to back to kind of its roots of athletes, which I think is a great fit for that team. I still get updates and chat with them all the time. But from my experience, really pushing and leading our healthcare business and our group health business specifically, I got connected with the team at Allen. And, it was kind of one of these moments where you just spent the last 4 years smashing against the wall that is kind of the incumbent structure of the Canadian health system and like really learning about like where the economics lie. Like as a digital health provider, what rank are you relative to a insurance carrier? So just simple math, most telemedicine providers are $3, $5 per employee per month. The insurance carrier is 200.
Yeah.
Who do you think's a little bit louder voice in that room? Who do you think comes first? And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, like I didn't necessarily consider like in that channel, like who has the most sway and power. And then you start looking at it as like, oh wait, like this looks like so many other markets in Canada. Like we only have three telcos, five banks. It's like there's only really three health insurance carriers in Canada. They dominate like 80% of the market and the amount of power that they have. So when someone came together, it's like, hey, this company is doing what you were trying to do at Curve on a way, way bigger scale, right? Trying to flip the model and say like, hey, instead of starting with like reimbursement, what if we started with prevention? What if we started with access, doing the things we were trying to use AI, probably before it was ready, to be honest, to do around patient engagement, but they have the economic engine of an insurer. So what I say all the time is like, we only sell insurance so that we can deliver at scale, zero marginal cost healthcare. And like insurance is the only wedge to do that in Canada. And then you start looking, it's like, wow, like this market's actually huge. Like we spend about $60 billion a year on the categories of care that a private insurer like Allen or the other ones can address out of the 400 billion we spend every year on healthcare. It's like, whoa, like that's interesting. So that's where I got connected. That was a kind of connection between our work at Curve and kind of what led me to Allen.
Nice, nice. And there was you mentioned at the beginning sort of this, like, I always knew I wanted to be in tech. And there's this trend and theme in your career so far in terms of like dabbling in the, not even dabbling, like fully immersed in the health space. What was there anything that sparked that, or did you just end up in it and then you loved it, or?
It's a really great question, Martin. Like I started to become more interesting in health, and to be honest, I haven't really shared this, but like the reason I moved back from San Francisco to Toronto was there were some health issues in my family, and it was like important for me to be at home and help out. And it was the first time, 25 years old, I, like every 25-year-old living, so like I wasn't really thinking about these things. Like I would run and jog a little bit, but like it wasn't really like a huge like priority for me. And through that experience and then being part of the team at Omers, like there's a fantastic investment team there. Like I got connected to the board of League, and they were really building some super innovative stuff in this space. And then I started writing about healthcare and the intersection of using technology to deliver better care experiences. And then I got connected to CAMH through another venture capitalist in Toronto. And, as soon as I saw that team and that mission, I was like, I have to be a part of that. I actually just wrapped up my 6.5 years volunteering there as the board chair for their young professionals community. So it really was not intentional by design, but it seemed to me like a category of all of our lives that was made very important to me at a relatively young age of like, wow, like these two things are obviously fit together. There's room for folks like me to come in, working with healthcare providers and policy experts to like bring a point of view that can add a lot of leverage. And, I joke with the team all the time. It's like, I'll never go back to selling accounting software. Like, doesn't matter how much money you offer me. I don't care. Like, I still have emails from Curve of patients who email me and say, hey, you connected me with a therapist who changed my life. Hey, you connected me with a dietitian who helped me get a hold of this problem. Like, there is no amount of like quota money in the world to go back to selling something that I don't think has a positive impact. So yeah,
it's well, when if you're lucky enough to get an opportunity to work on something where you truly feel like you're making an impact, and like what greater area than health. And it's funny, you don't think about it until you do, and then you almost think about it all the time. And at some point people are going to have to, at some point in your life, you're going to experience, somebody's going to experience something in terms of their health, whether and it's how you deal with it that kind of like makes a difference. You mentioned CAMH, which was interesting. I'm curious, like, your time like on the board, and I like also had like a pretty transformational time in like the mental health space. Did any of that shape your thinking about health benefits at all?
Yeah, 100%. So like at Allen, to be very specific, we have 50 to 100% higher mental health coverage than our competitive peers on the same benchmark plans. And we do that standard across all our plans. And that comes from my experience at CAMH. That's something that, when you're joining a company, like you're jointly kind of interviewing their values and like trying to figure out what do you care about. And like, this is something that was like kind of a hard line for me of like, hey, this is something I think we need to make a stance around. Again, like part of the reason why Allen's unique role is like they're coming in with certain things that are incredibly high end in terms of efficiency, but like they're looking for local, like our team is all Canadians, to share like what are the unique challenges in Canada and what can we do to make it better. So it was really like an incredible match of like our philosophical approach to these of like, hey, this is something that we need to make a difference on. So yeah, to answer your question, definitely.
And you've got a firsthand view. What's always interesting is like you've got this vantage point of like obviously you're in touch with so many different organizations across Canada and trying to disrupt a space that is pretty stale for lack of a better term. And you have to differentiate yourselves in such a way. What are you hearing from customers that seems to be like, okay, this is the trend and we really need to do like you're obviously going to match your products and services to what you're hearing in the market as best as you can, and you have this advantage of being tech forward in a way that none of the organizations are. I'm curious, how are you looking at all of this?
Yeah. Maybe I could like take you inside to kind of our boardroom, what we talk about. Really, like
Yeah.
I joined coming up on 2.5 years ago. Year one was about getting the license. So when you
Right.
talk to the regulators today, they're like, hey, it's going to take you probably 3 to 4 years to get through. That's a significant, because the next best question is like, well, why has no one done it yet? Right? Like
Yeah.
that is like the very obvious like investor lens question to ask this. And it's like, it takes 3 to 4 years to get through the process of getting the federal license. And then you have to go to each and every province. When you explain this to a colleague in Europe or something, they're like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, like it's a federalized system. Like, we distribute a lot of it. Healthcare is actually run by the provinces, 80% province funded, 20% federal. Like, it becomes very complicated very quickly. So year one was like getting through the regulatory process, making sure that we fully understand the requirements to operate and be a good partner to the regulators. And I think the relationship's been fantastic. Year two was how do we build the best health insurer in Canada? And like I say that a bit like I do that in a year. And it's like, yeah. So what really matters for health insurance? Is it simple? Can you sign up in 3 clicks online?
Hmm.
Is it easy to understand your coverage? Right? Who hasn't had the like, wait, what? I thought this was covered. That's the worst thing in the world. Can we pay you really, really quickly? Like, can we get the money in your bank account before you get home from traffic? And like, that's like not a joke. So you probably might have noticed still missing a front tooth. I was in like a really bad cycling accident in September.
Yeah.
I broke my neck, my face, my nose, my teeth, it was really bad. And like, look, I'm in a position where I could pay for stuff out of pocket and get reimbursed, but 50% of Canadians can't absorb a $1,000 unexpected expense.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it was more than $1,000, as anyone in this space knows. And by the time I got home from my first dental appointment, the money was already in my TD bank account.
That's wild.
Like that, I don't think we realize. It seems like, oh, it's just insurance. It's like, yeah, until you're sick, kind of where we started this conversation, until your family member, your daughter,
Yeah.
your partner. And then it's one other thing of 1,000 things. Like I'm to a point where like I'm recording every doctor conversation and physio and rehab because like it's too many I can't keep track of them all. Having one less thing, I don't think we really truly understand the value of. So
Yeah.
that's what we're doing in year two. It's like, can we be the best in class by observable metrics, not like hey, pat ourselves on the back. It's like based on what our customers expect, can we get there? The final piece is support, kind of ties back in. Like anytime you have a question, can we get back to you in 5 minutes? That's our like internal SLA. It's absurd. That's absurd to do. But like that's where we're hitting. We are still have yet to have a quarter without 100% perfect CSAT. So I would argue we've really checked the box of the best in class. I would put us up against any carrier in Canada on that. It's a ridiculous stat. So perfect for us is 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. So that's a different bar. It's like perfect to like a reasonable, because a lot of the time we have to say, hey, we're not reimbursing you, but we hope you give us a good mark anyway. So that's a really high bar when you think about it from an insurance perspective. And again, if you look at the studies, we operate at a plus 70 net promoter score, plus 69, plus 70. It's almost Apple Netflix level.
Yeah.
The traditional carriers, the studies are a bit old, but they're in the -2 to -8 range. So it's like okay, it's a bit old, but I think
that's a world-class NPS. And for folks that don't get NPS scores, I just happen to know it because we run NPS scores for the community, and it's you've like 30, 40 is kind of like average, and like
it's good.
Bad experiences is like negatives. You like the numbers can like 70 isn't out of 100. It's a weird scale, but 70 is insane. Like that's wide. That's wild
for an insurer who like does not accept every claim. like we get all my favorite messages are
Right.
where we say like, hey, sorry, like that's not in policy. Like we get back to you quickly, like, oh, like that doesn't work. We're not going to reimburse you. And we still get a high mark because we get back to you quickly. We're transparent. We link exactly in the book. Like we do everything we can. Those are the ones I'm most proud of. Not the like, hey, we ended up paying you back and you're happy about it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of level year 2. And now what we're doing right now is launching like the standard, flipping the entire system from I got sick, I went to my doctor, I got a prescription, I sent it to insurance, to starting with prevention. So launching gamified apps that are right up there with the stickiness of, a Netflix or an Uber Eats. How can we do that? We just reviewed our customer satisfaction. We have a third of users using our gamified health apps every single week. There isn't a wellness program like on planet Earth that has 33% weekly active users. And like that's like getting up to top tier of like consumer fitness apps you would pay hundreds of
Yeah.
dollars a month. That's like the future of healthcare though. It's getting ahead, flipping the model. How can we do prevention? And then the second piece is access. How do we instantly connect you with local, verified, registered providers, either virtually, which is what we've done already today with our free mental health sessions in the app, to then how can we build a map and show you, hey, there's a walk-in clinic down the street. Here's the fastest way to get to care, using technology to drop all friction and barriers to care. And that's where we're investing. And that is where the future of conversation is with all our customers. Like, hey, like, one of my favorites, like, I don't want to pick on any of the existing groups, but like, hey, does your current care, like, what was the last new feature that you saw in your insurance app? And then we
Yeah.
show our roadmap, and it's like we're shipping like absolute maniacs over here. Like,
Yeah.
when's the last time they asked you like what you want to see in terms of your health app? Because then I pull up mine. I'm like, hey, here's a feature that this customer told us they wanted to see more faster geolocation for reasonable and customary limits. Like, I want to know, hey, like, you're not going to get reimbursed anything above $150 or whatever it is. Or like, hey, I forget how many times my kid went to the dentist. Like, can I have a live balance of what's remaining integrated into my booklet with search and a chatbot coming soon? Like,
Yeah.
that's the stuff where it was like, oh wait, we're not really even having the same conversation. Like, we spend very little time talking about like, do you have 80% coverage for paramedical? It's like, yeah, we do that stuff, but it's like the future is like, how do we help you instantly unlock prevention and access for your team?
You've got this in like I already talked a bit about the vantage point that you have in terms of like all the companies that you talk to, but you've also got this additional layer of users slash employees and whatnot in terms of that. Like, what would you say the biggest disconnect is between what companies think their employees want versus what they actually need?
So it's a great, like, you're kind of talking about principal agent problem of like buyer and member, but there's
Mm-hmm.
even one deeper that I see, which is like stated preference versus observed preference. And that is particularly like
Yeah.
pronounced in healthcare. So to answer your specific questions, like sometimes we'll talk to admins, like people that run programs. That sometimes in a small company is a CEO, could be a head HR. It kind of depends on the size and scale of the company. And every single time, man, they care so deeply about their team. Like this notion of like a cold, like don't care HR is like not one I'm very familiar with, to be really
No,
honest. Like they
no.
really want to help. I think most of the teams we talk to is like, hey, there's one person in HR, or like they're one of many, but like this is all like they don't have capacity to do what they want to do to help their employees' health. So like one of the things we're running right now is Canada Workplace Health Leaders Award. The idea of like, can we go out and find these gems, these diamonds who are doing an insane amount with a limited budget? Ideally, it's free for programs around fitness and wellness. Can we take those stories, package them up, and share them with all of our members?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we
Open
help
source it.
give
Yeah.
you exactly right? And I mean, this is what you're doing, by the way, at scale in your community group. I'll say we have a lot of awards coming to your members, which probably makes sense. But
Nice.
I often always start from like that they want to do more than they have the resources for. So that's where like
Yep.
we want to come in and say like, hey, instantly we can just do a wellness program, a fitness program, a care program. Most of the time we talk to folks, they're really concerned about gaps in primary care. To answer you specifically, sorry, it took a while
Yeah.
to get here, but
No,
it's
no, no,
like
it's fine.
we mostly sell to 50 to 100% tech companies. So, there's demographics associated with that. Typically skews a little bit younger and a little bit more male. That's just an insurer answer. And those folks are typically less likely to have a primary care physician. So a lot of the time when we're doing testing, so as I mentioned, we launched with mental health. That's probably not a surprise given the CAMH part of the conversation and the care gap we have in Canada. Like, shocker, we pick mental health. The next one up that we're launching this year is primary care. That is like, and when we started Curve 6 years ago, it was mental health. It was the pandemic. It was the height of that. And what's happened is like wait times have exploded for access to primary care. So your family doctor is probably the first logical step there. Then you have to tie on what's happening right now in longevity, right? And a lot of these services run directly through a primary care physician, right? Whether it's, blood testing, biomarkers, that stuff you could probably guess very excited about. Like that also runs through a primary care physician. So I think it really solves too. And when we talk to the individual users, I think there's less acknowledgement around primary care as the big gap in their lives. We just did a study on this, and women's health was actually the number one issue, which is really interesting to me. And so we're talking about, okay, like what do our members say? We're doing the classic product management thing. What do they describe as their pain points? What can we feasibly solve as a company, given, we'll start virtual first, but we'll kind of extend into that value chain. And what are the top use cases that we're like, wow, if we went to our members and said, hey, like, here are the things that we can help you solve. Like, does that create enough value? Do we think that's the right place to start? So that's our process. And it's been a really interesting kind of discovery for us.
So in my mind, right, benefits lives is very much like prescription and dental, right? That's the like standard. That's what you've always seen. And like even everybody is almost programmed to think about their benefits program. And like anything else is sort of like cherry on top, but every cherry on top has been underwhelming to the point. So you don't really think about it other than like what's your dental and what's your HSA, or like what coverage do you have outside of that. And I guess so what you're saying now is like the trend that you're seeing in terms of like what employers think that their employees want, and what you're hearing and seeing from the actual employees and the users is all these other things that you've just talked about. Like is it safe to say that the narrative or the like most important things are shifting for the employee base, and if people don't catch up, it's kind of, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying they have shifted. Like if you look at surveys from employees, they think their employer is responsible and accountable for their health and well-being. Full dead stop. The reason why we continue to have conversations about what percentage coverage we have is because that's all that's been available in Canada. There is no comprehensive integrated provider. I mean, you can look outside the top three. There are like small examples here and there. Nothing at 33% weekly active usage, which I think like usage is the next key. It's like, talk to HR about buying another thing that sits on the shelf that no one uses, like completely uninterested in that. So we spend most of the time when we talk, like in our first kind of meeting, is talking about this is the unique moment to differentiate your employee experience and make a huge difference, a quantifiable difference in the health and therefore well-being and of your employees. Like we get to a point where 1/3 of our customers in Europe put Allen health benefits, not health benefits. They name us in the job postings, because that is a level of understanding of like, this is the future. And we're already starting to see that in conversations. Our referral rate is through the roof because like, once you see those dots connect, I think it's hard to like, as we were talking about in other parts of the discussion, like it's hard to go back to that old world.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a testament, right, to everything you've already said. Like the best scenario is your users are doing your marketing for you basically, and word of mouth. And that, like, if you're not getting word of mouth in that, like, what are you doing kind of deal? What's something that sort of like keeps you up at night in terms of the benefit space that probably most people aren't talking about or thinking about that maybe they should be?
I mean, the things that keep me up at night are not typically around like the benefit space, right? It's like, hey, am I doing the right things for my team? Am I showing up every day, being the right leader? Like those are the things that keep me up at night.
Fair.
I think on the benefit side, like, it's very clear to me where we want to go. The theme that we hear throughout is like increasing flexibility, right? Like how can we make things that are simple to manage? Because it can't be this like web of plans. If you're a 50-person team, you can't have the same complexity as a 5,000-person team.
Yeah.
But how do we add flexibility and inject that so you can, because health is best when it's personalized. Like how can we add that without it adding any additional complexity? And we don't have the answer to that today. So what we're spending a lot of time on is planning this out of like, okay, we feel like we've really nailed kind of that second bucket of like operating a great insurance carrier. Now, how can we go rebuild products that you're used to buying in a way that makes sense from a budget perspective, a management perspective? Um, so those are the problems we're trying to solve right now.
It's interesting because when you're doing this work and you're effectively like innovating in a space that's just not seen much innovation at all for a myriad of reasons. Um, you probably spend a lot of time not only thinking about like what does the market and what do customers and the market and employers and employees need right now that is elevated that helps us stand out, but you're also thinking about like the future state. And I'd be curious to get a sense of like, okay, well, there's like in the next year, here's all the things we'd like to get done, but like, what are you thinking 5 years out, 10 years out? Are you thinking that far ahead?
Yeah, we definitely are, and like this is where it's cool to be operating like a business unit within a larger machine. So Alan, has been around for 10 years in France, in Spain, and Belgium for 5 years. And then, we're actively looking at, maybe I'll say, new markets beyond Canada. And it's great because like, I don't have to guess too much of like what adds value. The first question to ask is like, are those relevant markets to here? If you like ask our team in Europe, like what are the big healthcare system problems they're trying to solve? It's like rise of chronic disease, lack of access to primary care, and medical deserts. Do those sound relevant to you? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're all trying to solve, like every developed economy is trying to solve the same things within the context of healthcare rising as a percentage of GDP. Like in the last 10 years, healthcare is up 10% as a percentage of GDP in Canada. That's completely disconnected from demographics. So average age is up 1.3%. So like we keep spending more money and getting worse results from this thing. And within that context, it's like very clear to me. It's like, great, how do we build out the rest of our virtual care clinic? So as I mentioned today, we have mental health, primary care. How do we get 40 different care providers all through one seamless front door and digital experience?
Right.
For me, long term, if you had to ask 5 to 10 years, like how are we piping data back into the public system? I deplore the idea of health silos. As I mentioned, I was in a bit of an accident and like, my chiro had a different EMR than my doctor, than my surgeon. And it was like a nightmare to manage. That's like a unique thing. In Europe, they mandate EMRs. So like this isn't a problem. When I'm explaining this, my colleagues are like, this isn't a problem we have. We're not used to. But there are solutions where we could be piping data back to create an entire, like basically an omni-channel EMR experience, which I think is really, really important. And some other very much smarter people than me have talked about this idea. And then it's very clearly like longevity, right? Like how do we take this emerging science, productize it, and give it to our users in a way that makes sense? Because our goal is not to build the best health insurer. I think that's frankly too low of a bar. Like that's not our expectation of a win. It's like how do we build a health system that is focused completely on prevention, drives access costs to zero, and helps you live happier, healthier life to 100. And that's kind of the three goals that I think along the time scale you mentioned are not scary to me in terms of
Yeah.
ambition.
Yeah. I hate to bring it up because it just gets talked about so much and you know exactly where I'm going, but you can't avoid it. And I'm just very curious, like how does AI factor into all of this? How do you feel about it
Yeah.
personally from a medical perspective? How do you feel about it from Alan's perspective? Or what are, because that is a portion of the future, a big portion of the future is surrounding and basically orbiting around that right now.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. I have like very strong views on it. We will not achieve our goals without automation and artificial intelligence. This goes back to Curve and my experience like 6 years ago,
Yeah.
but this conviction is even stronger today. So I'd like to start with some facts. There are 1 billion questions per day into Google about our health. This is
Yeah.
happening. The idea that like we can like pretend that we're not all Googling immediately as soon as we get sick, like what's happening, nor should we block that information. Is that a personalized, customized, safeguarded, physician reviewed model? No, we're entering into Google. Like, have they gotten better? For sure. But
Yeah.
like, let's not pretend this isn't happening today. And if you look up the stats, like ChatGPT posted theirs of like what percentage are on health and fitness. It's a big chunk. It's not as big as like help me cheat on my exam, but it's a pretty big chunk that people are already using AI today. And
Yeah.
those are flat foundational generalist models, which are really good, but they're not anything custom. So Alan, you could probably see where I'm going with this, has a custom, verticalized, safeguarded, physician reviewed model. So right now, you can talk. This is coming to Canada. It's coming. Hear me out. There's a doctor in the loop. See, it says, "Hey,
Oh,
Martin,
nice.
you're logging in. Do you want to wait 7 minutes or do you want to talk to our AI?" If you talk to the AI, a human doctor will review and verify the messages,
Yeah.
but you can chat with them. Opt-in rate is like pretty good. Last I saw, we're sitting around 50%, which is like kind of yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? Now, what we find is that one, if you want to get really uncomfortable for a second, it's like the empathy score. So, human doctors happen to be human. Have you ever been at the end of a 12-hour shift and like maybe been a little bit shorter,
Yeah.
maybe not added a bunch of
Yeah.
emojis? Turns out, as long as we keep AI plugged in, super happy. So we actually get like higher patient empathy scores. We have
Right.
about a 91% very good or excellent rating from both patients and doctors on messages. So we're moving in the right direction. That study was done almost a year ago. I don't know if you've been following Claude and Opus and all the new models. They've gotten so much better. There's a problem en route to being solved.
Yeah.
You have to keep the scope of care in your mind, because sometimes I'll talk to people and be like, "Oh my god, like what?" And I'm like, "We run a private health clinic in your phone, accessible by chat. If you get hit by a car, you're going to the hospital. If you type in, my left arm is feeling kind of funny, what do you think? We're sending you to the hospital,
Yeah.
right? You have to keep the scope of care in mind. It's like, but the idea is like 50% of the people that talk to us in our clinic, either through Mo or other places, don't end up going to their family doctor, don't end up having to go to the emergency room. That means you and your family who need to get through faster. And where wait times are heading on both the family, GP and emergency side, this seems like a good thing. So it
Yeah.
is coming. It's very responsible. I didn't talk about like how it's a RAG model with safeguards and how we built it to ask you questions, that it goes on an iterative kind of Socratic process. Like it's incredibly well designed, and we will launch it safely. The question that I like to ask, I'd be interested in your opinion. After how many successful chats approved by a doctor would you be willing to trust this thing completely? Is it 100 billion? Maybe you're like, I don't trust it at all. Like, is it a billion? Is it 100 million? Is it 10 million? Right? Like, there is a point at which you are going to, in your lifetime, trust completely an AI doctor for a
Yeah.
specific set of scope.
Yeah. Yeah.
My question is, like, how far are we from that? Is like a more interesting discussion.
I don't feel like it's more than 5 years.
I would say based on the progress in the charts. If you are, part of your question is like AI, I'm obsessed. I spend like every weekend vibe coding apps and having fun and learning. It makes me way better at my job. Like I can't stop. I'm
Yeah.
addicted to Replit, because it's just like you're peeking into the future. It's not here yet, but
No.
I tried every year for the past 3 years over the winter break.
Yeah.
This was the first year that it was like, oh, the agent is reviewing the agent, which is reviewing the security agent, which is reviewing the CTO agent. It's like this swarm of agent model. It's just like, wait, this is the future. So that was a long answer, but several parts of that.
No. I appreciate it, and like similarly, I've gotten like I think it's weird to say that it's been 2 or 3 years that I've been messing around with like AI and using Cursor and like exploring Lovable and just kind of seeing all, like I never got into Replit, but now I'm using Claude Code, and like what was amazing 2 years ago was also infuriating just because of hallucinations and the back and forth. And now you can just like one shot a prompt and it does everything for you. And like, don't get me wrong, there's still stuff to be reviewed and improvements, and it's usually coming back to like I said a single sentence and didn't give it clear enough. So it's more of a user prompting issue than the model not working. It's just I'm not working well with the model for how the model thinks, kind of deal. So for that to like, I mean, I'll get a bit more personal about this. Like I've been struggling with high blood pressure for like 2 years, unknown reasons. I've gone to like a million doctor's appointments. And so I've got a folder in ChatGPT, and everybody's kind of like talking about the switch to like, going from GPT to Anthropic, whatever, like for getting that kind of like back and forth. And there's other models as well on top of that. But I have gotten so much clarity and better results, and that's just with my duct taped version, to know that like it's actually a really nice thought to be like, okay, this is actually doctor reviewed, and this is like a specifically like, I'd love something like that. That would be fantastic. So it's really cool to see and know that it's being built, and it's being built by people with the right vision in mind in the first place. I that's more of a statement than anything, but like to your
No.
point, right? Most people are, a lot of people are doing this. I don't know if most people are. And it's been incredibly helpful for me, and my version is very janky. So I can only imagine the results I'd get if I was using a better tool, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sympathetic to people that are worried about this stuff. I really am. Like, I think
Yeah.
sometimes as a couple of tech bros on a podcast, it's like easy to come across and be like, like, AI for everyone. It's like, I'm very sympathetic to the concern around it,
Yeah.
but I think it's always needs to be done with the perspective of like, what's happening today? Is that something we're okay with? Right. Mm-hmm. So the two things we talked about, like people are asking AI, you're asking AI, I was asking AI anyway. Like, I don't need permission to like learn about my own health, and it makes me a better patient. We've all learned about patient advocacy and asking the right questions. And every doctor I know in my life will tell me, oh, this patient came in and ChatGPT or Google they thought they had some condition that they don't have. But the flip side of that is like you learning more about your own body and your experience and being able to ask questions on your timetable. Like, I think that's really, really valuable. And we'll all just have to agree to disagree on like our own personal timelines, because that's the true answer. Like, everyone have their own timeline for subjective. Like, no way my folks are jumping on ChatGPT to ask their questions right now. Like, they love their family doctor. She's a lovely person. But like, I definitely will continue to do so. And like, I think we need to accept that like it's going to happen. And yeah, I think it's a net positive, but it's not, it's not a full
everybody's
pro.
using Google now. Like, everybody's using Google now. And so the same thing's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. And who knows what, if it's going to be OpenAI or Anthropic or whomever, but it's going to be a part of our day to day, and not using it's going to be, I mean, that doesn't even feel like a question, I guess. Wrapping things up here. This has been a super interesting conversation. Grateful that you're advocating and building what you're building for Alan, but also for Canada. And I guess any sort of like final thoughts or what you're thinking of in terms of the future for benefits and healthcare in Canada?
Yeah, to me, it's like an extension of what we just talked about. Is like, it's very clearly an agentic future for health insurance. If you look at all the components that make like an agent, which I differentiate from a chatbot, is like, hey, I gotta ask it something. Agents coming in and like automatically, maybe then for your users, like automatically triggering, triaging, pulling on other agents, spinning up new instances to look into complex cases. Like, it's so clear to me that we need to be, as an insurer, pushing the absolute boundaries of AI within a core part of our operations, and doing so in the same way we think about it on the medical side, like in a responsible, supervised fashion. But you can't convince me that if we did this podcast next year, I won't be telling you about the 10 agents, because I can tell you there's quite a few being built right now that are running our business, and that we are just completely pushing the boundaries of what you can expect from a carrier around innovation and R&D around an agentic future for health insurance. Because it's just so obvious to me. Like, this is where, the people that play around with AI tools on the weekend, like, you're glimpsing the future today. And I'm looking forward to being able to ask our customers, like, hey, what agents did your old carrier ship for you this month? And showing them what we're doing. Because I think that's obviously the future. And that means we can spend more money on building out our healthcare networks, longevity programs. Like, I think it just means we can focus on the stuff that really matters.
Final question. It's a little bit silly. Talk to me about the bear.
Yes. Do you have questions about it, or do you want me to share the lore?
I would love the lore. I'm a bit of a marketing geek at heart, and I would just love. I love the branding. I love the content, but yeah, what's the story there?
So first off, incredibly important point. It's actually a marmot, not a bear.
Oh,
Really, really vitally important. A purple marmot.
purple
I
marmot.
think a big part of it is what you're kind of highlighting on, which I would say is observed in our buyer group of like, that's different. I was not expecting a big fuzzy purple marmot to be part of a health insurer. That's not really the type of branding they go for. Usually, it's a little more Castle Doom sort of stuff. So I think a bit of it is like positioning by contrast. But it's incredible. I've learned so much around the science of branding and mascots as a subcomponent within branding, and it's so extensible of like how we do it, from whether it's a physical asset we drop off with every customer. We do an onboarding, we drop off some bears, some marmots, because we have 2 plans underneath. We picked bears so we could drop off teddy bears. That's like not a secret. Who doesn't want
Yeah,
some teddy bears hanging out in their house? And it just like, it's easy, it's fun. And the number, like, probably once a month we get someone come in and be like, I wasn't even interested about health insurance, but I saw the bear and I thought it was super cute.
yeah.
Um, so I think you kind of, yeah, from a branding perspective, though, the history of mascots is something really fascinating that I've learned a lot about here.
Was there sort of like a lineup of like a flamingo, a marmot, a bear, a squirrel? Do you know any behind the scenes stuff on that, or how
For,
did you
for the
arrive at marmot? Is there a reason why marmot is the one?
So I don't have the history of the original one, but I can share, like, we named all our products locally here, and we kind of went through that animal list. We were looking at things that like sounded good in French and English,
Okay,
that were like somewhat easy to
that's
say for
cool.
English people in French, and vice versa. And then things that like would make a cute stuffed thing that we like. We didn't want it to be like size ranked, although kind of happened that way with Chipmunk coming out the next little bit, which is our smaller plan. Um, because we want everyone to feel great. Well, it doesn't matter what plan you're on, you want to feel awesome about it.
Yeah,
We don't like gold, silver, bronze, because that means like the bronze people might feel a way about it, which is not how
yeah.
we think about healthcare. So, um, yeah, so we did name the plan types after that specifically. That was a lot
Cool,
of fun.
cool, cool. Well, no, this has been a great conversation, Mark. Really appreciate the time, and yeah, just excited to see more from you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're not already a member of the community, please join us at thepeoplepeoplegroup.com.